Hürrem Sultan was the lawful wife of Suleiman I, the 10th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire and the 89th Islamic Caliph. She was the mother of the succeeding Sultan, Selim II, and the children Hürrem Sultan, Mehmed, Abdullah, Bayezid, and Sihanja. She held the title of a Second Sultan. Known for her colorful life, Hürrem Sultan became legendary due to her intrigues, intelligence, courage, and ambitions. Her life has inspired novels, plays, and opera works. She's renowned for playing an active role in politics and state affairs, with legends suggesting that she initiated the era known as the Sultanate of Women in the Ottoman Empire. Additionally, she's considered one of the most powerful and influential female sultans in Ottoman history. There is no definitive information about her life until she arrived at the Topkapi Palace. It is rumored that she was born in Roxelana, now in Ukraine, within the borders of the Kingdom of Poland, between 1502 and 1506. According to historians and writers, she was allegedly abducted by Crimean Tatar raiders around the year 1520, when she was in her mid-teens and was presented to the Topkapi Palace, under the protection of the Crimean Khan. In the 16th century sources, her maiden name was unknown. However, later records, such as those from the 19th century in Ukraine, suggest she was known as Anastasia Nastia in Polish tradition, specifically as Aleksandra Lisowska. Generally, she was known as Hürrem Haseki Sultan or Hürrem Balsak Sultan in European languages. She was referred to as Roxelana, Roxelana, Roxelane, Rosa, Ruziak, Ruslana, and in Turkish as Hürrem, of Persian origin Hürrem, meaning the cheerful or the joyful one. Roxelana may not have been her real name, but it is believed to be a nickname derived from her Ukrainian heritage, a common name in modern times being Ruslana, and the Eastern Slavic name Roxelany, or Roxelany, used among the Ukrainian people after the 15th century. Additionally, according to some historians, Hürrem Sultan Roxelana is said to be the daughter of an Orthodox Ukrainian family, born in the town of Roxelana within the borders of Ukraine. Her family background is a subject of debate. While some claim her father was not an Orthodox priest, but rather a poor farmer named Simeon Alexander Lisowski from the subjects of the Polish king, and her mother was a Polish peasant girl. Others suggest that Hürrem Sultan was the daughter of an Orthodox priest from Roxelana. Her nephew, Jan Lisowski, became the Lithuanian Duke, elevating the family to the noble class. She's described by European envoys of that era as having red hair, green eyes, and fair skin. This is also evident from the poems and ghazals written by her husband, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Portraits drawn in her name are entirely products of artists' imagination and do not reflect the reality. Additionally, she is the Sultan with the highest number of portraits painted in her name within the Ottoman Empire. Arrival at the palace ***. There is no definitive information about Hürrem Sultan's arrival at the palace and her meeting with Suleiman the Magnificent. It is believed that she entered the harem during her time as a princess or within the first year of his reign. When Hürrem Sultan entered the palace, Suleiman I had a son named Mustafa with Mahidevran Sultan, who was the governor of Manisa at that time. The most influential woman in the palace was the mother of the Sultan, Hafsa Sultan, and the second most influential was Mahidevran Sultan. After Hürrem entered the palace, she gave birth to Wazid Mehmed in 1521, making her the third most influential woman in the palace. The competition between the two consorts eventually turned into a conflict. Hürrem Sultan managed to turn the tide in her favor through various intrigues. After this altercation, Mahidevran Sultan, who fell out of favor after this event, was sent to join her son Wezaid Mustafa, who was appointed as the governor of Manisa in 1533, and Hürrem Sultan took her place. With their marriage, a precedent was set, and she became the official wife of Suleiman I. Consequently, the title given to the Sultan's concubines, Haseki, was changed to Haseki Sultan, and this was announced through a globally celebrated ceremony. Hürrem Sultan's position in the palace increased, as she became Suleiman's lawful wife, surpassing Mahidevran Sultan in rank. After the birth of Wezaid Sihanja, Hürrem Sultan married Suleiman in a magnificent wedding, and a religious ceremony was held between them. Although the exact date is uncertain, this wedding, believed to have taken place in June 1534 or earlier, is considered a crucial and revolutionary move that went against Ottoman traditions. With this marriage, Hürrem Sultan became the first concubine in Ottoman history to be married by the Sultan. For a long time, in the ongoing struggle between Mahidevran and Hürrem Sultan, Hürrem's influence in the palace increased further with the death of Valid Hafsa Sultan, who was thought to support Mahidevran Sultan and had significant influence over her son. However, after the death of Valid Sultan, Mahidevran Sultan began preparing for the Valid Sultanate, since she was considered certain for the position as the mother of the heir, Wezaid Mustafa. Role in the nomination of Wezaid Mustafa and the elimination of Pargolak Damit Ibrahim Pasha, Sodrazam Pargolak Damit Ibrahim Pasha, one of Hürrem Sultan's sons instead of one of her princes. The role of Hürrem Sultan in the sidelining and subsequent drowning of Ibrahim Pasha in his room, a night of March 14, 1536. Upon his return from the Iraqi campaign, is rumoured. Ibrahim Pasha, who had been a close friend and advisor to Suleiman since childhood, is said to have fallen out of favour and drowned with the influence of Hürrem Sultan. However, it is known that Ibrahim Pasha's overestimation of himself in state affairs and the mistakes he made as he rose also contributed to his own downfall. After this event, it is widely believed that Hürrem Sultan began to manage state affairs, moving the harem to Topkapı Palace. It is believed that Hürrem Sultan moved the harem from the old palace to the Topkapı Palace to be more actively involved in state affairs. The exact date of the migration from the old palace is unknown. It is thought that some of the harem people were moved to Topkapı Palace after the fire on the night of January 25, 1541, in the old palace, and the harem protocol began. Hürrem Sultan is also thought to have played a role in the appointment of princes to provincial governorships. In 1541, Wezaid Mustafa, who was serving as the provincial governor in the Manisa province where the candidates for the throne were appointed, was removed from Manisa and appointed as the provincial governor in Amasya. The following year, however, due to public and military reactions, Suleiman announced that Wezaid Mustafa was sent to Amasya for the security of the Eastern Territories, and that Wezaid Mustafa's heirship continued. Continuous appointments like these are considered to be the result of Hürrem's influence. While tradition required Hürrem Sultan to go to the province with her princes, she chose to stay in Istanbul. Contrary to customs, however, she visited her princes on different dates. Appointment of Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha *. Hürrem Sultan's only daughter, Marima Sultan, was married to Rustam Pasha, the governor of Diyarbakir, and the third vizier, in 1539, Rustam Pasha, receiving the title Damit's son-in-law, was appointed as the Grand Vizier in 1544. In most sources, it is indicated that behind the dismissal of Grand Vizier had come Suleiman Pasha, and the appointment of the third Vizier Rustam Pasha, instead of the second Vizier Divane Husrev Pasha. Marima Sultan and Hürrem Sultan were involved. Execution of Wezaid Mustafa. Fearing that Wezaid Mustafa would ascend the throne to Suleiman the Magnificent, Hürrem Sultan plotted with her daughter and son-in-law Rustam Pasha to discredit Wezaid Mustafa in the eyes of his father. Acting under Hürrem Sultan's orders, Rustam Pasha had a seal made for Wezaid Mustafa and wrote a letter to the Safavid Shah Tomasp, presenting the Shah's response to Sultan Suleiman. Through a series of intrigues like this, Sultan Suleiman was convinced that his heir, Wezaid Mustafa, would rebel against him and seize the throne on the day he was murdered. Thinking he would meet his father, he went to his tent, dressed all in white. It is said that he was aware of the accusations against him and wanted to indicate his innocence. He also pulled out a letter from his pocket after his death, stating that his father would kill him and advising him not to go to his father's tent. Wezaid Hanja, who witnessed this event, could not overcome the emotional impact of the incident and fell ill. The young Wezaid, who continued the campaign with his father, died in Aleppo. As potential heirs, Hürrem Sultan's two sons, Wezaid Bayezid and Wezaid Selim, remained. Execution of Kara, Ahmed Pasha, and Hürrem Sultan's involvement. Kara, Ahmed Pasha, was appointed Grand Vizier following the dismissal of Damat Rustam Pasha 1553. However, after incitement by the Sultan's decree allowing Rustam Pasha to return to the position of Grand Vizier, Kara Ahmed Pasha was deemed guilty and executed in front of the Imperial Chamber after a council meeting 1555. It is claimed that Hürrem Sultan and her daughter Marima Sultan were behind this event. Foreign policy and state affairs. Unlike other Ottoman imperial consorts of the time, Hürrem Sultan engaged in foreign policy, conducted diplomatic correspondences, and interfered in state affairs. It is believed that she encouraged the opening of the Rhodes campaign against the Knights of Rhodes in the second year of Suleiman's reign and supported subsequent campaigns against Iran. In 1548, during Suleiman's second Iran campaign, Hürrem Sultan wrote a congratulatory letter to the newly crowned King of Poland. The first letter written by Hürrem Sultan was a condolence and congratulatory message sent to King Zygmunt upon his ascension to the Polish throne. After the death of his father in 1548, some sentences from the letter, sent by Haseki Sultan's special envoy Hasan Aka to Warsaw, are as follows. We have learned that you became the King of Poland upon your father's demise. God, who knows the truth of everything, be our witness that we were greatly pleased and joyful. Our hearts were filled with light, and our souls with happiness. We wish your reign to be prosperous, blessed, and long-lasting. We advise you to act in accordance with the orders of Almighty Allah. Indeed, the commands of the Almighty guide us. Moreover, there is a seal on the back of the letter. For the first and only time in the Ottoman state, a Haseki Sultan corresponded by letter with a king, breaking one of the norms of the time. Undoubtedly, this can be interpreted as a revolutionary act. Although subsequent granddaughters-in-law Nurbanu Sultan and Safiye Sultan corresponded with queens, there is no other example of a Haseki Sultan personally corresponding with a king, apart from Hürrem Sultan. Hürrem Sultan's diplomacy and state affairs. In response to the thank you letter from King August, Hürrem Sultan sent another letter through a special envoy Hasan Aka. The summarized response in his reply is as follows. May Allah extend the life of His Majesty the King, turning each day into 1,000. When your esteemed letter reached us, we were so delighted that I cannot express it. Your genuine affection towards us is clearly seen in your letter. You have expressed your sincere closeness to our Sultan so openly that we found comfort in it. When we conveyed the affection in your letter and the friendships described by our servant Hasan Aka to His Majesty, the Sultan of the universe, the refuge of everyone in the world. They were so pleased with your closeness and favors that it cannot be put into words. They said, "We were like to brothers with the great king," referring to the deceased father Zygmunt. "May Allah, the most merciful, make us like father and son with this king too." Additionally, Hürrem Sultan sewed handkerchiefs and shirts as gifts for Elkaz Mirza, who sought refuge in the Ottoman Empire. The sister of the Shah of Iran likened Hürrem Sultan to the wives of Pharaoh, Mary, and many other heroes, describing her as a source of pride for all women, uniquely beautiful and angelic in creation. Hürrem Sultan frequently involved herself in state affairs, particularly informing her husband Sultan Suleiman about the state of the empire during his campaigns and offering suggestions. A letter she sent during the Iran campaign is a beautiful example. "My Sultan, if you ask about the city, for now, the illness still continues. However, it is not like before, my Sultan. I beg you to send your blessed letters frequently. Truly, if a week or two passes without a messenger arriving, the world becomes agitated. Various rumors circulate. Otherwise, do not think that I only request it for my own sake. My Sultan, there is now a noise in the city as heralds are expected to arrive. The entire world is ready for the city's fleet, my Sultan. While you are wintering with the state in Aleppo, there is no news yet of the red-haired ones," referring to Shah Tahmasp's son or wife being captured. "There is nothing yet in the middle. Now he is absent, then that is absent. The arrival of the herald does not please anyone." In addition, it is rumored that Hürrem Sultan ensured the participation of her envoy, the Notchevan campaign, with the saying of the Sultan, "A king is needed for a king." In one of her letters, when her husband was on a campaign, her words, "I am saddened that you could not capture the Shah's family," prove that she was closely following the course of Sultan Suleiman's campaigns. Hürrem Sultan conveyed the greetings of state officials and the Istanbul Grand Mufti in her letters, addressing issues in Istanbul. In one letter, she says, "You asked about my resentment towards Ibrahim Pasha. I will tell you when you come." She wrote a letter when Rustam Pasha was dismissed, requesting his return to office. It is known that she elevated Pasha to the position of Grand Vizier and married him to her daughter. Hürrem Sultan dealt with statesmen and their problems, discussing them in her letters with Sultan Suleiman, providing opinions. Hürrem Sultan and her legacy. Hürrem Sultan, who successfully ensured the throne for her sons, passed away on April 15, 1558, in Istanbul. Records state that she died a natural death. After an elaborate funeral ceremony, she was buried in the courtyard of the Suleimani Mosque. Her tomb, built by her husband Suleiman, was erected over her grave. After her death, Hürrem Sultan became the subject of numerous works in painting, music, and ballet both in Europe and Turkey. An example of this is the 63rd Symphony by Austrian composer Joseph Haydn, often referred to by the name Roxelana. The title of its second movement, Turkish playwrights Yusuf Niyazi, Orhan Asena, and their works Mazlum Zezadella, Hürrem Sultan, and Your Devlet by Your Kuzgunli, are plays centered around Hürrem Sultan. In the 2003 TV series Hürrem Sultan, Gulben Ergen portrayed Hürrem Sultan, while in the TV series Muhteşem Yüzyıl between 2011 and 2014. Hürrem Sultan was portrayed by Meryem Üzerli and Vahide Perkin. The first major ballet work written in Turkey, Hürrem Sultan Ballet, inspired by Orhan Asena's play Hürrem Sultan, was composed by Nevit Kodal in Rohatin, Ukraine. Believed to be the birthplace of Hürrem Sultan, there is a monument dedicated to her. In 2007, in Mariupalia, a port city in Ukraine, the Tatars opened a mosque in honor of Hürrem Sultan. In Istanbul, Hürrem Sultan had the Haseki Kule built in the district named after her, Haseki, by the renowned architect Mimar Sinan between 1538 to 1551. The complex includes a bath, a madrasa, and a hospital, serving as her first and most significant charitable contributions. Today, known as the Haseki Training and Research Hospital under the Ministry of Health in Turkey, it holds the distinction of being the oldest continuously operating hospital in the country. Hürrem Sultan also had a kitchen built near the Hagia Sophia Mosque to feed the needy and poor. Various works dedicated to Hürrem Sultan were constructed in Mecca, Damascus, Baghdad, Konya, Jerusalem, and Eden.